Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Transmission Show here on FreightWaves. This is, I guess, third gear. We're just going to keep going with our little trend until we run out of gears. I don't know when we're going to run out, but we'll stick with third since this is towards the beginning. My name is Sebastian Blanco. I run the newsletter, the Transmissions newsletter. I'm here with my co-host Grace Sharkey. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It could be a little less gloomy in Michigan, but it's April, so who knows?
Yeah, it's just the way it is. It's a very special episode for us today because we're bringing in our first guest. But before we get to him, most automakers rely on just-in-time manufacturing to optimize production. That model requires precise coordination throughout every link in the global supply chain, and that's where AIT Worldwide Logistics comes in. AIT's automotive logistics professionals are the experts at developing resilient, scalable solutions for OEM and Tier 1 supply chains across Asia, Europe, and North America. AIT has the expertise, technology, and carrier connections to achieve your production goals just in time. Check out their link in the show notes. All right, so electric vehicles, it's a thing, it's happening. I was just on a call a little while ago, and one of the speakers from GM was talking about how the 20th century, we started with horses, we ended with cars. The 21st century, we're starting with ICE or internal combustion engines, and we're going to end with EVs. Some of the news that just came out is that IKEA is ordering some trucks for their last mile deliveries up in Canadian cities. That includes Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, to clean up some of the inner cities. There's a project Volvo's doing down in California, and they're going to be delivering 14 more trucks to one of their partners to do some of the local, regional food distribution. It's these little things, it's 14 trucks here, 15 trucks there, but that adds up over time. And these are expensive products. Companies have to get used to learning them. But to me, these are really encouraging signs for the market as a whole, because now people are going to really keep using them, learn how they work, and deploy them. And what you wrote about something also earlier, more electric trucks in the world.
Exactly. I think what's really interesting is that a lot of companies are focusing on that short mile right now, but a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure, right? That's all that we can really implement at this time because we don't have the best infrastructure for charging these vehicles or really giving them longer miles. So I love seeing that companies are really focusing on implementing it in some way, in some part of their supply chain. I was actually just talking to Anheuser-Busch, and they are on it as well. They're trying to figure out ways to move from breweries to their specific warehouse locations to the end consumer. And because of the infrastructure aspect, this is the best that a lot of companies can do right now. So I feel like everything is falling in place. The administration is starting to focus on that aspect now. So hopefully we just start seeing more and more of this over time.
Yeah, it's really inevitable that that's what's coming, and good news for us, good news for the world, in my opinion. So we just wanted to bring that up briefly at the top here because it's just something we're seeing a lot of in our reporting and in our discussions that we have. But today, as I said, it's exciting to bring in our first guest. We all have desks. It's not our first desk. It's our first guest. He is the principal solutions engineer for OmniSci, which came to our attention because they use a thing called Global Maritime Awareness, and we're going to get him to talk all about it. But we've all been made mildly aware of the shipping world recently for various reasons, and so we'll see if we can have Antonio Cotroneo help us out, understand us a little bit. Antonio, are you there?
I am here. How are you doing today?
Excellent. We're so good. And I remember reading on Twitter when the Ever Given was stuck that someone posted, it's never a good thing when everyone learns the name of a boat. And we all learned the name of that boat, and now we know why it was a problem. But from what I understand, the Global Maritime Awareness sort of idea is that you're aware of a lot of boats at a lot of time. What can you tell me about it and how OmniSci sort of tracks the boats and sort of keeps companies informed for the information that they need to have?
Yeah, absolutely. So OmniSci is a technology that can really visualize a great deal of information. One of those is global maritime information, things like automated identification systems or AIS information, and being able to actually gather and visualize the location information of ships as they traverse international waterways, common shipping lanes, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of the AIS side. And there's also the opportunity to actually work with other data partners to actually grab ship information and ship locations from satellite imagery, perform some analysis on that information and gather their location, type of vessel, and perhaps even be able to understand what that ship is doing at any given time, whether it's for kind of common operations or for actually identifying ships that may be performing nefarious activities as well.
And how do you have any specific information on sort of how you're working with partners in the auto industry do you help track their vessels about when things are going to get to their ports for them to get to the factories that they might need? Or I know that OmniSci does a lot of different things with the automotive industry, but as far as the maritime awareness situation, is that a thing that auto companies enjoy learning about or they need to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is kind of cross-industry, this particular use case. So, I mean, just to give a little bit of a background, OmniSci is a visual analytics technology. So we actually, and we specialize specifically in spatiotemporal information and visualization. So, and for anybody that is unaware, basically that's just the mashup of space and time. So being able to visualize information at any given time and space. So in terms of how that affects the automotive industry, how it affects the supply chain industry, as you can imagine, that's probably pretty vast. So in terms of the supply chain industry, being able to have operational awareness of where ships or data or ships or the supplies that they're carrying, maybe at any given time, and how those are connected to specific suppliers, whether they be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers and manufacturing facilities, is obviously highly valuable to the OEMs themselves.
Would you say that technology is proactive? The one thing I know about shipping between, especially different tiers, is they like to communicate with all levels so that everyone knows, okay, this is exactly when I need to get this product out. And a lot of technologies are able to tell you where the ship is, right? But does it offer a more proactive approach, almost like a warning or a signaling of, next steps moving forward after this information is delivered to automotive suppliers?
So I would say that we certainly work within an ecosystem of products that can help provide predictive analytics or predictive alerting, for instance. But for ourselves, that's not something that our technology is inherently going to deliver. But we will be a part of solutions that will go about doing that. Yes, absolutely.
As you're working with auto industry partners, have you seen any sort of changes or new adaptations that are happening because things are becoming electrified, or is a lot of the back end sort of shipping information stuff pretty much the same, because getting parts to companies or to factories in order to make ICE vehicles is the same as if they're going to make EVs? Or are there new components now that cars are being made and used in different ways?
I say the thing that I've seen in recent years, specifically with the OEMs, is how they're using the information that their vehicles on the roads are actually generating, and how to find new ways of monetizing the information that their vehicles are generating, and information that's coming off of the telemetry devices that are actually on the vehicles themselves. So ways to sell the data that they're actually generating off of the vehicles, or finding new channels and new ways to partner perhaps with government organizations to improve obviously an aging infrastructure here in the United States.
I really like that, because at the end of the day, you can switch all these vehicles over to EV, right? But that's not going to completely take away their carbon footprint or the energy that they generate. So you really can help them optimize certain areas, whether it's like idling time or maybe how far cars have to go out to go charge. I assume that your technology would help give them those different insights to help bring that carbon footprint down.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think something that we tend not to think about when we think about EV is also the fact that energy still has to be generated, right?
Yeah.
And today, like, a lot of that energy, even though it may end up being electrification or at charging stations is still generated by burning fossil fuels, and at some part of the chain. So I think one of the ways that we're helping both on the commercial and on the federal side of that is understanding the location and the age and the fidelity of a lot of the actual infrastructure that supports this type of transportation, and being able to look for optimizations and for efficiencies that can be achieved. But particularly when it comes to the geospatial aspects of the supply chain or the transportation system.
And how deep does your data set go? Are you talking to some of the charging companies as well to sort of pull information on, state of charge of a battery, or, how many chargers are open to people to use? Or is it really more on when you're talking about the vehicle telemetry data, is that more from the vehicles or OEMs themselves?
That's typically from the OEMs, or in the case of the maritime vessels, that's typically from the AIS data that all of our maritime vessels around the world are generating that AIS data in high volume. So we ourselves are not a data provider. We are the visualization and the exploratory data analytics platform. But we work with data providers in a number of different spaces. When it comes to the telemetry data itself, it's typically coming from the OEM. So we'll partner with a specific OEM. Especially today, all of those OEMs are placing telemetry devices in their vehicles, whether it be commercial vehicles for the trucking logistics industry, or if it's for the maritime vehicles or vessels, and obviously for any type of cars or trucks that we're driving as citizens. So yeah, we're able to gather all of that information and be able to visualize that information and not have to actually downsample any of that. Not to get it all about the technology itself, but in a lot of ways, what we see is that in the past, when people are doing any kind of spatial analysis or want to do geospatial visualization on large volumes of telemetry information, they have to downsample that to specific days, specific times, so they can actually visualize all of it at once. Whereas, today we actually see that people need to look at not only, what happened in the last week or day, but actually be able to look at that out over large slices of time, and even project that out into the future. So, I think that's sort of the differentiation that we see with our technology.
I've had a lot of experience helping build a company and really help them figure out how to read and analyze data. And it's a lot of times it's just way over their head, which makes sense. We can't all be analytical masterminds. I'm definitely not. Where do you feel like your customers have had the biggest aha moment? Where do you guys come in and people are just oh my goodness, I had no idea. What's something that customers really come to you guys for solutions on?
It's exactly that. When there is large volumes of information, and when I say large volumes, I'm talking about actually being able to visualize tens of billions of records of information at any given time. So this isn't going to be let's run a report on a specific county and the number of collisions that we saw, or the number of speed violations that we were able to pick up on from the telemetry information. No, this is being able to look at hundreds of millions, billions of rows of information, and be able to look for anomalies within all of that information at one given time. I think the global maritime example that you were discussing before, that's when you look at it, some of those vessels are actually generating, terabytes of information every hour, based on the actual vessel itself, not just its location, but the operations of the actual vessel. And that's really difficult to slice and dice and actually gather any kind of actionable insight from. And that's really where I see a lot of people coming to us specifically for.
Are they looking a lot for savings in? I'm guessing monetary savings are a big thing, but how would it sort of do the questions that they're coming to you to answer rank? Are they only financial? Are there a lot of monetary ones, or sorry, time saving ones, or is there some environmental savings that they're looking for as well? Or are they all kind of blended together because efficiencies just generate more efficiencies as everything works together?
No, I think you're totally right. It's across the board because in some cases, with especially with the OEMs themselves, like I was saying, like they may actually be looking for ways to make money off of this data as well, reselling data that's been obfuscated, or scrubbed of personal identification information. And being able to resell that to people that want to perform their own analytics, or to, in certain cases, I've seen like partnering, private and federal partnering on transportation studies, or working with universities on doing transportation studies, making roads safer, or developing smarter communities, so that we can achieve some of those pieces that you're actually talking about in that first segment with the EVs around perhaps some of the last mile components, right? I mean, it takes a more modern infrastructure to actually to achieve those things, connected environments and smart cities to really find some of those more sort of futurist ideas that we always read about, and I've been hearing about for years now.
Yeah, I want to live in those digitally rendered worlds in the future where out the helicopters flying around cities, and there's little transport pods moving people around, and like sky elevators from Futurama. That's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. I don't think we're going to get there anytime soon, but
No, but like you were talking about, I mean, like even recently in the last couple of years, we saw like some of the initiatives that Volkswagen's had on like their charging station initiatives across the United States and Europe. So I mean, it's certainly happening, but it's incremental, like with anything.
I am a huge fan of smart cities, so I love that you touched on that. The sooner that we could have them here, the better for me. And I'm interested in how have your customers really used your technologies to optimize their supply chains or optimize the way that they're getting to different tiers? I know that usually the deeper into the tier, the less technologically advanced they are. Really, the more you get to raw metals, right? Um, how have you seen more of your systems helping those smaller SMB type of companies?
I would say mostly when it comes to transparency and being able to get some visibility into the rest of the supply chain, and to be able to open up communications with those other tiers and be able to collaborate over shared information. I mean, because we're all sort of like taking part in the supply chain, right? There's like one global supply chain that we all sort of are participating in or renting a little bit of for ourselves. So I think being able to communicate over information, over data, collaborate over that data are the ways that I think that we best support those perhaps like tertiary suppliers and what have you.
there seems to be a push, especially in sort of the passenger car side of the industry, of the automotive industry, that's really looking for, like you said, transparency all the way down the chain. So, Volvo announced that they want to remove fossil fuel from the steel that they're going to be putting in their cars. It's a long-term plan, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. And so is some of this work that you're doing, like I said, as you're helping these smaller, less technologically sort of advanced or larger corporations developing their data, sort of not their data sets, but their like ability to send data up the stream? Is that something that they're looking for? Is environmental components, or not so much with those kind of companies?
I haven't seen that myself, not just yet. But I totally see a time when that'll certainly be the case, when we have the opportunity to create interactive visualizations that anybody up and down the supply chain will have the opportunity to take a part in.
So then let's zoom out a little bit here and look mostly at sort of the global supply chain in general. Does the situation that we're seeing with the recent hiccups, whether it's the ship issue that we said, the port blockages, things that sort of resulted from COVID, when you're talking to your partners, either within your company or the companies that you work with, do they see that as, okay, COVID was a hiccup, it's a problem that we're going to deal with, but after that, it's going to be sort of, we're going to go back to how it was before? Or is this a problem that as they now try to fix the things, like for example, the chip shortage that the automakers are dealing with right now, do they need to invest the money to build the new plants, or by the time those plants came online, the chip situation would have sorted itself out anyway, because it's going to take a couple years to build the chip? So I guess to reframe the question, are these, are we looking for solutions to problems that won't exist by the time the solutions arrive?
I think those problems already existed. I think what COVID did was it sort of exposed a lot of cracks in a lot of global systems, but obviously today, like focusing specifically on the supply chain, I think that's all that did, was really just bring a lot of those to the forefront. I mean, like even I think about the supply chain in a lot of the same ways that I think about like if we're actually like architecting out a solution for a customer, we actually, if you were looking for some type of redundancy in your actual software deployment, you actually want, like for instance, like servers to be placed all over the place, so that like if one goes down, that you're able to fall over into those other servers, and your application never comes down. You have like this fault tolerance. But like I mean, the supply chain's the same way. I mean, we don't want to have all of production or all of manufacturing or all of supply being located in one place that actually delivers a great deal of risk to the rest of the supply chain. So like being able to actually have like some geographic redundancy, and whether that be the manufacturing process, getting manufacturing facilities closer to market and to where people are actually purchasing products. I mean, that whole bit I think is connected, and I don't think we're necessarily going back to whatever was before. I think we'll sort of develop whatever this new normal is going to look like. But a lot of the issues that I think that COVID exposed are still going to be here, whether it's now or in a couple of years from now. I mean, things are only moving quicker, and our infrastructure is only getting older. So I think a lot of the issues that we've experienced are going to be persistent.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of COVID exposed it compared to COVID created some type of problem.
Totally agree.
And on that positive note, we are running out of time here. But Antonio, thank you so much for joining us today. What I'm really hearing is that we're going to be talking about this for a while. There's a lot of opportunities and challenges to come, and we look forward to keep on talking about it. And hopefully we'll have you back on sometime to see where we stand in a year or so.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Antonio, again, thank you very much. Antonio Cotroneo is the Principal Solutions Engineer for OmniSci. My name's Sebastian Blanco. That's Gray Sharkey over there, and we will talk to you next week.